October 1964, New York City. A 16-year-old boy walks out of his family's apartment with a suitcase and $40. His parents have just divorced. Frank Abagnale is on his own with no job, no diploma, and no money. Within weeks, he opens a checking account under his own name at a New York bank. He orders a fresh box of blank checks. Then he alters the printed numbers, laying his own account digits over a different company's, and starts cashing forged checks at stores across the city. The scheme spreads fast. He moves from city to city, opening new accounts under new names before the old ones catch up with him. He learns that a uniform opens doors a checkbook alone cannot. He buys a Pan Am pilot's uniform from a costume shop and forges an airline ID card using a stolen employee number. Wearing it, he deadheads flights in the jump seat and cashes payroll checks at hotel front desks in city after city, always claiming a lost wallet or a delayed paycheck. By his own account, he logs over 1 million miles this way, never once at the controls. Banks in different states begin comparing notes on a young man with the same face and a dozen different names. Then he changes shape again. In Georgia, he claims to be a licensed physician, taking a supervisory post at a hospital, never touching a patient himself, letting the resident doctors run the floor while he signs the paperwork and collects a salary. Later, he studies for the Louisiana bar exam using borrowed textbooks, and by his own telling, passes on his third attempt. He works briefly as an assistant attorney general, using forged credentials to get hired. Each new identity buys him weeks, sometimes months before suspicion catches up and he moves again. He crosses borders into new countries, cashing forged checks in banks that have never heard his name. Interpol opens a file on him. The Federal Bureau of Investigation adds him to a growing list of financial fraud suspects, one that keeps growing every time a new city reports the same forged signature. By the end of the decade, investigators estimate his forged checks total roughly $2.5 million, spread across more than 24 countries. In January 1969, French police arrest him in Montpellier, acting on a tip from a flight attendant who recognizes his face from a wanted poster pinned in a crew lounge. France convicts him and sentences him to prison. Sweden extradites him next on separate fraud charges, followed finally by the United States. An American federal court sentences him to 12 years. He begins serving time in a federal penitentiary after transfers that carried him from a French prison to a Swedish jail to an American one. Conditions in the French prison are harsh, and by his own account, he spends months in near isolation before the transfers even begin. Then, a postal inspector named Joseph Shea, the same investigator who once chased his forged checks across state lines, negotiates an unusual early release. Abagnale will work off the remainder of his sentence by teaching banks and federal agencies how forgers actually think. He consults for the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. He starts a company advising corporations on check security and fraud prevention. He writes a memoir, published in 1980, and the story becomes a best-selling book, then a Hollywood film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. For decades afterward, Abagnale tells the same story on stages and talk shows around the world. The teenage forger turned trusted expert. The con man banks now pay to protect them. Universities invite him to speak. Governments cite his advice on identity theft. Then, in 2020, an independent researcher named Alan Logan publishes years of investigation into the original court and newspaper records. He finds no documentation of a doctor's post in Georgia. He finds no record of a Louisiana bar exam. He finds no confirmation that Abagnale ever flew as a Pan Am jump seat rider. Some of the underlying check fraud convictions are real and remain on the record. Much of everything else exists only inside his own telling. The FBI has never formally revisited the discrepancies. Hollywood has never revised the script. Abagnale still speaks to audiences today. Nobody has ever proven how much of his story is true.